Joining me now is Lieutenant Chris Olivarez with the Texas Department of Public Safety. Lieutenant, thank you for joining us. This slowdown that happened after Title 42 went down, do you expect it to continue? And of course, by the way, President Biden's taking full credit for it. What do you say to both of those questions?
Well, I mean, first off, David, good morning. Great to be with you. So, of course, there was multiple factors that are causing this decrease in numbers that we're seeing at the border. But keep in mind, though, we're still averaging anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 encounters at the border. That's not taking into account those illegal immigrants that are being released through the ports of entry with notice to appears, where they have court dates 3-4 years from now, and even much longer. And also, you'll also keep in mind, too, during the Title 42 week, over 6,000 were released without any type of notice to appear. So, again, it's all smoke and mirrors. When we look at the numbers, we still have a serious problem at the border. Now, as far as the credit, well, I think the credit goes to the state of Texas for what we did during that week of Title 42 with our Texas DPS troopers, our Texas National Guard, everyone that stepped up and held the line by preventing thousands more of illegal crossings. And it was all because Governor Abbott mobilized additional state resources to the border, more state troopers, more National Guard, even Texas game wardens were involved as well. So it was a concerted effort as far as everyone involved, and we were actually able to prevent many more crossings. That's a strategy that we're going to use moving forward, especially like in Eagle Pass, El Paso, where we do expect to see more increased crossings or potential crossings throughout the summer months, because typically the summer months is where we see more activity taking place. And also, we got to keep in mind, too, the gotaways. Those individuals that are trying to evade capture, that's our primary focus as well as the criminal activity, human smuggling, and, of course, as Dan Springer mentioned, over 400 million lethal doses of fentanyl that our DPS troopers have seized statewide in the past 2 years during Operation Lone Star.
Yeah, and of course the gotaways, you have no idea who they are or exactly what they might be doing, whether they have criminal intent or whether they're real refugees. But bottom line, I'm wondering how much the cartels who control everything that's happening from Mexico to getting through the border, how much they have become embedded in the United States, how much they have actually taken root here and are causing a long-term problem for law enforcement.
Well, the cartels have always had some type of influence in the United States. I mean, just not because of the current situation at the border, but even years before. I mean, that's how they're able to gain so much influence, by not only carrying their organized crime from Mexico into the United States, because it's also human smuggling, drug smuggling, weapons, everything that's involved with that organized crime. So because of the current situation for the past 2 years, they become more emboldened. They become more powerful because they're making a lot more money now than ever before off of human smuggling. Every person that comes across that river, whether it be a man, woman, child, even human smuggling cases where we see these, immigrants that are being smuggled in vehicles and trailers, they're making money. They're profiting off of that. It's a multi-billion-dollar trade for these Mexican drug cartels, not only drugs, but also human smuggling. And also you look at fentanyl, how they're able to mass produce fentanyl now at record levels, which we had never experienced before in years. And now we're seeing that because they're able to produce so much fentanyl. And there's no consequences in Mexico. There's no consequences from preventing these precursors that are being imported into Mexico, where these cartels are able to mass produce fentanyl at record levels. And of course, now tens of thousands of Americans are dying every single year because of that.
Lieutenant, we've had a couple of segments today about reactions to from New York politicians about the migrants that are coming in to New York. And of course, you can find the same sort of comments from city officials all over the United States based on a few thousand that have arrived here. And of course, there are real concerns, particularly when they try to house them at kids' schools and stuff. But when you hear those reports, I mean, you've been dealing with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands over the past year of migrants, and with the same problems with funding that they have anywhere else. What do you think when you hear those comments from, say, politicians in New York?
Well, I mean, that just goes to show you that, David, there's no actual end result for the situation, that no one really has a plan to prevent what we're seeing, especially when you're talking about putting migrants in schools. I mean, there is no way to alleviate the flow of people coming across. They're trying to mask it by just placing people in hotels and schools, and that's not going to solve the problem. More people are going to continue to come until you apply consequences. And that's one other initiative the governor did, even last year, by busing some of these migrants from these smaller border communities, because, of course, we don't have the resources, the capabilities to house thousands that are coming across. And that's why he started busing some of these migrants to these self-declared sanctuary cities, Denver now being most recent, one of the most other cities that's added to the list. So again, that's why it all goes back to policies. If they would put policies in place, we would prevent what we're seeing right now, this tragedy at the border. But again, until that's done, I mean, unfortunately, we're going to see thousands coming across. They're not going to have a plan to place these migrants. And now we're going to see them in the streets, homeless. We're going to put them in hotels. We're going to put them in schools. So there's no end result at all whatsoever, David. So that's why it's a serious situation that something needs to be done.
Lieutenant, we got to run, but I have to ask, is the slowdown that's happened since the end of Title 42 going to continue, or are we going to build up to the levels that we were before that?
Well, we hope it does, but I mean, just the way things have been going, David, of course, we're more focused on criminal activity. That has not slowed down. People smuggling, drug smuggling. I think it's going to continue to increase, especially in the summer months. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen.
Lieutenant Olivarez, all the best to you. I really hope you do well and stay safe, my friend. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.